My name is Bill Sousa. I'm in the Department of Criminal Justice. I study crime and I study the little things. This has nothing to do with my Napoleon complex. I appreciate the irony. But when asking the question of why we should study the little things, we have to ask the question of what do we fear in public places? That was me. What do we fear in public places? Okay, well, clearly, a source of fear would be being victimized by a violent criminal, such as this fellow out on the strip being victimized by a ruffian in period garb and an arcane weaponry. Most of my students who are up front here don't recognize me outside of my suit. But this is clearly a source of fear, is being victimized by serious criminals. So what is serious crime? Well, when we think about serious crime, these are what the FBI defines as the serious crimes. We have the violent offenses like murder, rape, robbery, and assault. We have property offenses like burglary, grand larceny, auto theft, and arson. They have the FBI, so they must know what they're talking about. But it turns out that there are other sources of fear in communities, and another major source of fear. And we refer to this as minor offenses, or disorder, or quality of life problems, or incivilities. And unlike serious crime that occurs only sporadically, even in troubled communities, minor offenses often occur all the time, and citizens are constantly confronted by them. We have social disorders, such as street prostitution, aggressive panhandlers, street-level drug dealing, public alcohol use, public drug use, youth who intimidate people in public. We have social disorders, we also have physical disorders, things like graffiti, trash and litter, broken windows, broken bottles, abandoned buildings, abandoned vehicles, used drug paraphernalia. Right, so we have both social disorders and we have physical disorders. But disorder is sort of a nebulous term. Some very well-known criminologists have tried to define disorder. Taylor, for example, defines it in terms of examples, so burned out cars, trash, graffiti, street crazies. Kelling suggests that it's boorish and threatening behavior that disturbs life, especially urban life. But Scogan suggests that it's not easy to define disorder and that it rests largely in the eye of the beholder. And that really any attempt to define it will involve making value choices. And this is part of the difficulty with studying disorder, because disorder does not always mean illegal things, okay? But also activities that are disreputable, or rude, or unpredictable. In this respect, disorder is somewhat like pornography, right? It's difficult to define, but you know it when you see it. Disorder, indeed, means different things to different people, but for the most part, people know it when they see it. There's a very well-known theory known as broken windows that talks about the link between disorder and serious crime. Broken windows is a metaphor. The idea is one broken window in a building can lead to more broken windows and to more serious problems. The broken windows hypothesis suggests that disorder and serious crime are linked in a developmental sequence. The first step in the sequence suggests that disorder gives rise to citizen fear. There's actually a good deal of empirical evidence that links disorder to citizen fear. The theory then suggests that citizen fear gives rise to behavior modification. People stop making eye contact in public. People begin avoiding areas. They begin avoiding encountering disorderly conditions. This then leads to a breakdown in community controls. Now, at this point, it is not inevitable, but the theory would suggest that the community at this point is now vulnerable to serious crime. In other words, serious offenders will feel more comfortable acting in these areas. So we shouldn't be surprised if street robberies increase, if fights and assaults begin to break out more often. So why is disorder or minor offenses a problem? Well, there is the suggestion that it leads to serious crime, and there's more and more empirical evidence that suggests this. There's, as we discussed, there's the strong evidence that disorder leads to citizen fear. But perhaps most importantly, the fact is that people don't like disorder. No one likes graffiti in their neighborhoods. No one likes abandoned buildings and broken windows, and these types of things. What can we take from all of this? Minor disorder can lead to greater disorder. Citizens desire a degree of orderliness in communities. And while all citizens have a role to play in managing disorder, police are uniquely situated to help citizens maintain order. So what's the policy implication for police? To translate the theory into practice, if you manage minor offenses through order maintenance, then you can reduce disorders that negatively impact citizens. you can reduce the source of fear in communities, and you can potentially reduce serious crime. Now, auto maintenance policing in practice is not easy. It is very proactive in nature, so it is difficult to do when police are tied to the 911 system and they're forced to react to calls for service. Because it deals with minor offenses, it involves an enormous amount of discretion on the part of police, so officers need to use discretion appropriately. We know, though, that when properly implemented, auto maintenance has enormous potential. It is often the case that when we see an increase in disorder management, that a decrease in serious crime follows. Of course, it's not always easy for police to keep up their level of proactive enforcement indefinitely. So at a certain point, citizens themselves have to take over for the auto maintenance function. There have been a variety of studies across the US that have demonstrated the value of auto maintenance. In specific locations within cities, such as public parks, has been very effective. This is MacArthur Park in Los Angeles, for those of you who are familiar. Aggressive auto maintenance strategies led to decreases in drug dealing, in public drug and alcohol use, and prostitution. Auto maintenance strategies have also been very successful in small cities. In Lowell, Massachusetts, for example, this is the site of a very recent experiment that looked at police auto maintenance strategies in specific neighborhoods in Lowell. But of course, the most famous example of the approach is in New York City. This is where auto maintenance was famously introduced by Bill Bratton in the early 1990s. Bratton was then Rudy Giuliani's police commissioner. After it was introduced, the city started seeing dramatic decreases in crime, and these reductions in crime continue through to the present day. Which leads me to Las Vegas. Metro, as well, is in the process of minding the little things. Metro has a proactive unit. They call it the saturation team, and much of what they do would be categorized as auto maintenance. In fact, I'm involved with a project with Christy Batson, who's out there beyond the lights somewhere now. And so we'll let you know in a few months. Oh, wow. We can tell you in a few months whether it's going to be successful.